Some truths arrive like thunder, others land like a feather. Today, the fool meets justice, the archetype of truth, karma, and equilibrium. This is the card of consequence and the quiet courage to choose with integrity. Hey friends, welcome to my channel. If you're new here, I'm Elizabeth and this is the More Intuitive Me. I'm a tarot reader and your companion on the path of self-discovery. Welcome back to the Fool's Journey. Today the Fool meets justice, the moment of weighing before the pause. This is the card of truth, consequences, and accountability. Here, the Fool learns to choose with integrity and honor the ripple of their actions. Let's take a look at the symbolism of the Justice card. Today we're going to be using the Universal Weight and Tarot Disassembled. Of course, we are going to start with the sword. We can see the sword represented in both of the cards. The sword represents truth, discernment, and the power to cut through illusion. Now, usually in the card, we also see the scales. And the scale is talking about balance, fairness, and the idea of weighing actions versus outcomes. Now, usually we will see a seated figure, and that represents authority, presence, and clarity. If you notice, we also have pillars and we can see a veil that is representing hidden truths, right? Cosmic law and the threshold of choice. Now, something that we don't see in these cards, but is very common in the Justice card, is going to be the idea of weighing the heart versus the feather. And I wanted to talk about that. In Egyptian myth, the heart was weighed against the feather of Mat, goddess of truth and cosmic order. And if the heart was lighter than the feather, it signaled alignment. If it was heavier, it meant there was unresolved guilt. Let's take a look at the Justice card from the Gaian Tarot and think about what the energy of justice is and how it shows up in our everyday life. So this could be something like speaking up when it would be easier to keep your mouth shut, right? Telling a friend that perhaps their comment hurt you, even if it means being uncomfortable. It could be owning the impact of your choices, not just your intention. For example, maybe you need to apologize for missing a deadline that affected another teammate, even if you meant no harm. Sometimes you hear people saying things like, well, it's not like I meant it, or it's not like I did it on purpose. But no, there's a cause and an effect, and it had an impact on that person. And so we need to own that. It could be recalibrating relationships where the energy exchange feels off. For example, maybe you need to ask your partner to share more in the household responsibilities when the load starts to feel like it's uneven. It could also be choosing honesty when it disrupts the harmony, right? Maybe you're planning a trip and your loved one is super excited about going on a cruise, but all you want to do is retreat to the nearest mountain. It's important to let them know that you're not ready to commit to that plan, even if they're excited by it. It could also be advocating for fairness, either in your work, your family or community, right? Speaking up when you feel that somebody's ideas are being overlooked or their feelings are being cast off to the side. And it can also be reflecting on past choices with compassion and clarity. Maybe journaling about a decision that you regret, but also identifying what you learned from it. Justice shows up when we're asked to choose with integrity, not just for ourselves, but for the greater balance. Let's take another look at the Justice card from the Universal Weight. Justice is card number 11, and 11 is a master number. It echoes both the 1 and the 2. And so the Justice card carries both the power of the magician, and it's elevated by the wisdom of the high priestess. So if we look at Lady Justice, you can see that she sits between the two pillars with the veil behind her, which is kind of like our high priestess, right? And then she's wearing a red robe, just like our magician. And if you look at her posture with one hand raised and the other hand lowered, that kind of mirrors the magician, right? With the as above, so below. So she's not just the next step, but she's the integration. Justice is the bridge between doing and knowing. She asks, what will you do with what you know? And how will you honor its impact? Let's take a look at some card comparisons. So first we will look at the Justice card from the Simdala. Now on this card, the activation is veracity, right? That's the clarity of truth, even when it's uncomfortable. Next, let's take a look at the Tarot of Light. So here we have divine order with the keyword equilibrium. Now, this is more about the balance between truth and compassion. Let's look at the Justice card from the Quiet Rebel. So here we have the idea of karma, right? This is where we get into the echo of our choices, right? The ripple of consequences. I just think this card is a little bit on the humorous side, but it does speak to that idea of karma. Next, we have the Huntsman, and this is from my Forest of Enchantment. I love this card. Here we see more of a seeker of truth, the person who tracks down the things that are hidden. This card always reminds me of the Snow White story, right? The huntsman goes out and finds her and then makes his own choices. Another common keyword that we sometimes find is balance. And here we have two completely different stories, if you will. And so let's first look at Vision Quest. So here, and then as a reminder, in the Vision Quest, we have a Thoth-based deck. And so that's why it says card number 8. But this is actually the card of Justice. And I love this card so much because if you think about it, it's that reminder of being grounded, right? And finding your center and your balance. And if you think about it, there's a vessel that she is balancing on her head, and it is very likely that that vessel contains water. Now, if you think about the connection of water to emotions and think about calming the mind or stilling the mind, remember that this card, justice, is connected to air, right? And so we have to still the mind in order to maintain that balance. Otherwise, it's very possible that the vessel could fall, and and we'll have spillage, or even the vase can break. So I really love that depiction. And then we have balance in the rosebud. And here, we have the scales. The scales are balanced with flowers. We have these perfect rows. Everything is very symmetrical. And I just thought that these two have a completely different viewpoint for what balance could be, right? This is recalibration of energy, intention, and impact. I do want to bring back the card from the Gaian Tarot, because here they went a completely different way. So we can see the balance, right? The heart and the feather. But what we see in the background is a collection of animals that are currently endangered, close to extinction. And in the background, we have what was once a forest. And you can see that parts of it have been destroyed, right? And so this is a card that is asking us, what are we doing, right? What are we doing to our planet, to Mother Gaia? What are the choices and the impacts of the choices that we make every single day as consumers and inhabitants of the planet Earth that are affecting everyone else around us, all sentient beings, not just other people? And so I really love that version or interpretation of the card. Next, we have the card from our Guiding Muse, Tarot of the Guiding Muse. And I really love this one. This one is very different. So, this card has a little bit of those Sherlock Holmes vibes, right? Here is a person on a quest. They're on a mission. They are searching for the truth. They have their magnifying glass. They are observing the side of the building, because there appear to be some symbols on the wall. And I'll bring the card up just a little bit closer so you can take a look. But I really love how they have done this in this card, the idea that we are truth seekers. The guidebook tells us that Emmy is out and she's looking for clues. She's collecting the facts. She's looking at the evidence before arriving at a decision. Next, we're going to look at the Justice card from the Muse Tarot, another card that I really, really like. We have a central figure, and in essence, her head has split open, revealing another layer and another layer. And it's that idea, almost like, if you think of it like the onion, you know how people say it's almost like peeling back the layers of an onion to get to the truth, to get to the center. And that is the idea that this card brings to us. Next, let's take a look at two of my most favorite decks. We have the Ember and Aura and Tarot of Mystical Moments. Now, in the Ember and Aura, we have the central figure. She's holding the scales on either side of her. Now, that can be pretty exhaustive, but she has the support of the two women behind her, which is so amazing. They are supporting her, holding her up as she kind of reaches up to connect with the divine. And that almost gives you a little bit of those high priestess vibes, if you will. Love to see the sun and the moon here in the background. And of course, we can see the necklace with the logo for Libra. And the other thing that I really love is that we have crone energy as well as mother and maiden. And I really love to see that in this card. Let's take a look at Tarot of Mystical Moments. So here we have Lady Justice seated atop of all of the buildings, right? A skyscraper. She has her sword, she has her scale. But what I like is that from this viewpoint, she is able to see things from a completely different perspective than any one of us, right? She has a vantage point. She is able to look and to discern from a distance without being too close to whatever it is that requires that closer attention. I love the clouds in the background of this card and the idea that if you think about it, that she is going to be cutting away that fog and looking for clarity as she makes her choices. Let's take a look at two other decks that go a different way. So we have the Forhaxa and the Tarot of Strange Branches. Now, both of these cards kind of have a little bit of that High Priestess vibe where they are both connecting within. We can see the blindfold on the figure in Forhaxa and closed eyes in Tarot of the Strange Branches, because they are connecting to their intuition in order to make their next steps, in order to discern which is the right choice. In the Forhaxa, we have the snake, which is a symbol of transformation, and we can clearly see that there are two doors. There's a choice to be made. So I really love the way that that card is set up. And then in the Tarot of Strange Branches, we can see that there is the connection to the sun and the moon that we previously saw in the Ember and Aura as well. Next, let's take a look at a couple of cards that don't have any human figures in them. So we have the Mermaid Tarot and Raven's Prophecy, which is a very new deck to my collection. And so in the Mermaid Tarot, you can see that the scale is being weighed, the sword against a scroll, which is quite interesting because, as we know, scrolls keep information, they keep data, sacred texts. And if we remember from the High Priestess, she has a scroll in her lap, right? So I do see that tie in there. Now, in the Raven's prophecy, we have the idea of being weighed against the material goods, right? Earthly goods that we find here in our 3D world. So, very, very different, but still get the point across. Now for a look at a deck that is a little bit on the shadow side, right? So this is Cirque du Tarot, and here we can see the Fool, and his companion is with him, his spirit animal or his guide. And the Fool is just kind of haphazardly throwing the chips and kind of letting them land as they may, right? And you can see that there's a little bit of chaos, and perhaps the Fool is a bit naive and doesn't really recognize what exactly will happen as a result of their behavior. But I think this card does a very clever job of demonstrating, and we have these two figures on each of the scales, and at any moment any one of them can be toppled right off. And here I'll show you, look at the look on that guy's face. Like, he's petrified. He is petrified at what is going to happen. So I really love what they've done with this card. Next, we are going to look at my all-time favorite Justice card, which is from the Sasarai Beetle, and it's just chilling. You can see the idea. We have the sword, we have the scales. They are being weighed against each other. But this is kind of like the idea of looking directly at the truth without fear, without hesitation, no need to blink. There's no flinching, there's no escaping, right? It's coming for you. And I just love how they have chosen to portray it in this card. It truly is chilling. Sometimes you hear, oh, the truth will cut you like a knife. But in this case, she faces the truth without fear. Next, let's look at our naturescapes. So here we have the Justice card in the form of this majestic waterfall. And I really love this because with this card, we get the idea of an unstoppable force. And remember, water is cleansing, it washes away, and so I love to add that into my interpretations. Friends, if you love tarot and this content resonates with you, please make sure to like and subscribe. Tap the bell icon so that you don't miss any upcoming videos. And thank you so much for being here. Here is our significator card. So we are going to use the Justice card from my Raven's Prophecy deck. Now, this is a very new deck to my collection. In fact, this will be the first reading. So I'm excited to see how she reads for us today. So as usual, I'm going to leave the card out, the Justice card, as a significator, and we are going to pull 3 cards to see how the Justice energy is showing up in our lives right now. So I want to give the deck a good shuffle, and we are going to focus on the first question, and that is, what truth is ready to be acknowledged? And as usual, I will leave the questions for you in the description box should you decide to do the spread for yourself. So, what truth is ready to be acknowledged? There she is. All right, we have the King of Wands. I think I might have to zoom out just a little so that we can fit all of the cards there. That's better. Okay, so let's shuffle and pull the second card. So for the second card, where am I being asked to recalibrate or take accountability? Okay, so where are we being asked to recalibrate or take accountability? Okay, here we are. All right, we have the Knight of Coins. All right, so let's focus on the third question. So, what support helps me choose with integrity and grace? What helps me choose with integrity and grace? Oh, there she is. Oh my goodness. So we have the Fool card. Wow. All right. So let me take a look at these, and we'll jump right in. So for the first question, we had, what truth is ready to be acknowledged, right? So this could be something that perhaps we have sensed before but haven't really given a name to. It could be within ourselves, our relationships, or maybe our path. We have the King of Wands. Now, I mentioned this is a very new deck, first time using it and first time reading with it. So I want to keep the guidebook handy because you never know what tidbits you will find. So as I look at this card, I want to mention that in this particular deck, this is the last card in the deck. And I think that's important to take note of because usually we have the King of Pentacles as the last card. But here we have the King of Wands. And the keywords are inspiration, ethics, leadership, and boldness. And so when we ask ourselves, what truth is ready to be acknowledged, perhaps the scales have been tipped because maybe we are not pulling in that energy of the King of Wands. We create our own inspiration for the things that we want to do. And the King of Wands asks us to be bold, to be courageous, and to take the lead in our own life. And so, if there are areas where there are imbalances, right, between ourselves and others or on our journey, then it is up to us to make sure that we recalibrate and bring things back into alignment. The King of Wands is a very bold and charismatic energy, but above all, they're a leader. They take action. This is fire energy. So we want to make sure that we are front and center in our lives, doing the things that we are meant to do. So I think that's very powerful. For the second card, we have where am I being asked to recalibrate or take accountability? Okay, so for this card, we have the Knight of Coins. Now, interesting, the representation on this card is that of a shovel. But when we're thinking about what I'm being asked to recalibrate or take accountability in, here we want to think about like what pattern or maybe even a dynamic that could potentially feel misaligned, right? How could we meet this with clarity and with care? We have the Knight of Coins. Now, the key words for this card are dutiful, methodical, cautious, and hardworking. But I also know that this energy is an energy that likes to do things a certain kind of way because it is tried and true and they obtain results. And so it is possible for this energy to maybe perhaps be a little bit stubborn or get set in their ways. It's very possible to fall into routines. And so, if we are looking at what could potentially need to be recalibrated, then perhaps we can look at the patterns in our lives, what we are doing, and is everything really working for us? Because for me, it seems like the energy is askewed. If we are reviewing the energy of justice and bringing things back into balance or perspective, then it's quite possible that the energy is off. And so maybe we're going about our routines, going about our lives, working steadily towards certain goals and objectives. But really, what we're wanting to do is spice things up a little bit. Do things a little bit differently, not fall into those patterns so that we can tap into that King of Wands energy just a little bit better, perhaps that is what the card is bringing to our attention. There's nothing wrong with the Knight of Coins. This is a great, great energy to have and to pull in. What I see here is that perhaps we need to utilize a little bit of caution in the routines that we set up for ourselves and not fall into them. Like, remember to go back and review the things that we are doing and change things up from time to time, right? Because as time goes on, things change. And we won't know that if we don't stop and test different techniques that are potentially working or not working for us. Okay, so let's move on to the third card. What support helps me choose with integrity and grace? And we have the Fool card. So for the Fool, we have the keywords fearlessness, folly, innocence, and potential. And I think that is what is catching my eye the most. And not to mention, I think it's also important to note that we pulled the first card out of the deck and the last card out of the deck in this reading. And I think that is very telling as well. So, with this Fool energy, we want to look at. What reminds us of our values when the path feels unclear? And I love to see the Fool card here because it's like going back to the drawing board, going back to what started, how we started from the beginning, right? If you were that person that created a mood board, what was the original inspiration, right? What was it that gave you the energy to get started? What was the potential that you envisioned in your mind? And are we aligned with that? Right? There's a lot of times that we start working towards a goal and we get lost along the way because we forget the reason why we started to do things in the first place. And so I really love to see the Fool card here because it's a reminder to go back to the beginning, right? Go back to that beginning moment, what it was that you were trying to do, and look at where you are right now. Are you doing those things? And perhaps we need to pull in that King of Wands energy so that we can get back to where we were at the beginning when we were feeling that sense of fearlessness. And we didn't care. We had this sense of, we can do anything. This is going to be so cool. This is going to be so great, so exciting, so fabulous. And somewhere along the line, we fell into routines, we fell into patterns, right? Now we're out of alignment. And the Justice card is asking us to recalibrate. Take a look at those things that we are doing. Does it align with our values? Our values shift from time to time, right? That's another thing that is very important to always look at and assess, is that our values tend to shift as we go through different life experiences. And so I'm loving this Fool energy here at the end of the reading because it's a reminder. It's a reminder that everybody started somewhere, right? And when we started, we had this incredible sense of excitement over all the things. I mean, look at the figure in the card. She is going to conquer the world, right? So we can do this if we pull in that King of Wands energy and if we make sure to recalibrate the Knight of Coins, because I feel like the Knight of Coins is where things get tricky. We get into our comfort zone, right? We start to do things a certain kind of way and we lose track of the reason why we started things to begin with. So wow, what a great reading. I feel like this reading is really inviting you to pause and reflect and perhaps even choose again with clarity, with compassion, and with courage. Justice is teaching us that truth is not a concept, it is a practice, and that every choice is a chance to return to alignment. Next, we meet the Hanged Man, the archetype of surrender, suspension, and sacred perspective. After choosing with clarity, we learn to wait with wisdom. Friends, thank you so much for watching. If this archetype stirred something in you, I would love to hear your reflections below. Please subscribe and stay connected as we continue unlocking the tarot. Until next time, choose with heart and keep listening.